and welcome to ProtoMet Reviews. A little over a year ago, I took a look at the classic anime, Mobile Suit Gundam, over on Gamma Zilong. Today, I'm going to take a look at its sequel, Mobile Suit Zeta Gundam. Can Zeta live up to the legacy of that Mobile Suit Gundam left behind? Let's find out.
Following the end of the war between the Federation and Zeon, now called the One-Year War, the victors of the conflict, the Federation, create a new branch, the Titans, led by Jamatov Haimim and his subordinate, Bascom, to suppress the Zeon remnants and prevent another war between Earth and space. Unfortunately, the Titans' methods of maintaining peace involve the outright oppression of Spacenoids and committing horrific atrocities in the name of peace. To oppose the Titans, a group consisting of Spacenoids and members of the Federation that see the Titans for what they truly are, come together to form the Anti-Earth Union Group, or AUG for short.
Yes, there's still some backstory for this series as well, but there's much less of it, and the show proper explains a good chunk of it.
Enter Camille Bedan, a teenager from the colony Green Noah, which is slated to be renamed Grips, who despises the Titans for their high and mighty attitude toward civilians, and he even gets arrested for punching a Titan officer, Jared Mesa, who made fun of his name. After Jared accidentally crashes a newly developed Gundam Mark II into the Titan base, allowing Camille to escape, a trio of AUG DS mobile suits, led by Lieutenant Quattro Bagina, appear in the colony. Camille takes control of a Mark II and helps the AUG capture a second Mark II before fleeing the colony and ultimately joining the AUG in their battle against the Titans.
This series is essentially Gundam, the next generation. We get to see how the events of the previous series shaped the fictional world and how it wasn't necessarily for the better. But I use the term next generation quite literally, as this series primarily focuses on the new generation of the Universal Century. For example,
Camille, who's hinted at being a new type early on, not only has to deal with the fact that he's gradually becoming a soldier in a new war, but also deal with the newer relationships he's forming with others. His childhood friend, Fa Yuri, ends up caught up in things simply because she knew him, and she decides to fight alongside Camille as a mobile suit pilot, something Camille doesn't want to accept. Due to his continued encounters with Camille, Jared ends up viewing himself as the Amuro to Camille's Char, a destined rival who has to stop his opponent at all costs. Problem is that Jared's no Amuro Ray, and what becomes an obsession for Jared is merely an annoyance for Camille. There's Emma Sheen, a Titan pilot who becomes aware of just how cruel the Titans can be, which convinces her to join the AUG wholeheartedly to bring an end to the tyranny she nearly contributed to. And then there's Katz, one of the White Base orphans who wants to battle against the corruption of the Titans and bring the peace that the end of the One-Year War should have led to.
And those are just a few of the new characters that Zeta Gundam brings to the table. I'm not going to go into more detail about them in this video, but other characters include Rekko Alond, Yazan Gable, and Sara Zabayarov.
In addition to Katz, many of the characters who survived the original series return. Quattro Bagina, who's now one of the good guys fighting against the oppression of the Titans, continues to be a fantastic character. Bright Noah, the captain of the White Base, now joins up with the AUG to defend the rights of Spacenoids and to protect his family living on Earth. And though reluctant at first, Amuro Ray joins the cause after regaining his drive to pilot mobile suits to protect others. Speaking of mobile suits, while I love the designs of the mobile suits in the original Gundam, I'm not much a fan of the designs used in Zeta Gundam. There are some exceptions, but I find most of the mechs kinda look ugly, which is probably the result of implementing transformations for most of the mobile suits, changing them from humanoid forms to space vehicles. If I had to guess, it's probably because Transformers had started airing recently, and it proved to be quite popular. Like I said, there are some exceptions, such as the Zeta Gundam, which doesn't even appear in the show until episode 21, and the Gaplant, which I like the vehicle form of. I'm also particularly fond of the Psycho Gundam, but that might be because it's just a giant Gundam with an interesting plot. More on her later. But for as disinterested I am in the designs, I can't deny that the mechs are well utilized, so they definitely go for function over form. The original series barely scratched the surface of the new type concept, but Zeta takes a deep dive into exploring the nuances of it. As Camille gradually develops his skills as a new type, he encounters cyber new types, artificially created new types developed by the Titans, who seek to use the new frontier of human capability as a weapon of war. And these cyber new types are tragic, from For Murasame, a girl who can't remember her own past and works for the Titans under the promise of being given her memories back, and who develops feelings for Camille, to Rosamia Badam, a woman who lost her family in the colony drop that occurred during the One-Year War, and who is convinced that the AU will cause the sky to fall. But cyber new types aren't the only help the Titans have on their side, as there are also a handful of natural new types, the most dangerous of which being Poptimus Shirako, whose cunning and manipulative guile can charm nearly anyone. The only ones who seem to be totally immune to his charms are Jamitov and Bask, who are suspicious he might be gunning for leadership of the Titans. And there's a third faction that enters the fray, Axis, comprised of Xeon remnants that fled to the asteroid belt and massed their forces under the command of the last surviving Zabi, Minerva, but which is actually controlled by Haman Karn, a young new type who has some history with Shar.
Mobile Suit Zeta Gundam not only lives up to the original Gundam, it surpasses it. But while the original Gundam movie trilogy are an excellent way to experience the original series in a shorter amount of time, avoid the Zeta compilation movies, A New Translation, at all costs.
Whereas the original trilogy had 2 hours per movie to condense the story of a 43-episode series with plenty of extra unimportant scenes and episodes, A New Translation decides it needs to compress a 50-episode series that's heavy on important plot points into 3-hour-and-a-half-long movies. The result is a lot of events from the series being too compressed to matter or just skipped altogether. And the various space battles end up being mushed together into confusing messes that really only make any sort of sense if you've already watched the show. And while the original trilogy came out only a few years after the show had ended, resulting in the new footage created for the movie blending well with the original footage, A New Translation came out around 2 decades after Zeta had originally aired, and the new footage created for the movie clashes with the original footage. They still look good, but it still clashes.
There's a very good reason why the Gundam franchise continued past this attempt to revitalize the series. Zeta Gundam is better than the original series in almost every way, so I strongly recommend you give this series a watch. Just pretend A New Translation doesn't exist. Until next time, I'm ProtoMet. See ya.